Yashodanandana Rajajanaranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Kala Chanji Radha Kala Chanji Radhe Jaya Jagannatha Jaya Jagannatha Jaya Baladeva Jaya Subhadra Jaya Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada Hare Krishna. Good morning. My name is Manjari Gopika Devidasi, and today we'll be hearing from the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 9, Chapter 2, covering verses 15 through 36. Before we begin, I ask for your blessings that I may speak something pleasing to Srila Prabhupada, to my spiritual master, and to all of the devotees. Let's chant the invocation prayers together. Narayanam namaskritya naram chaiva narottamam devim sarvasvatim vyasyam tato jayamudirayet nashtaprayesha badreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavati uttama shloke bhaktir bhavati naishtiki Om Gyana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta-vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay, so as I mentioned, today we'll be covering verses 15 through 36. In the interest of time, I was thinking we'd do this a little differently today because many of these verses will see our genealogical lists. So I'll ask you all to read certain key verses and then I'll summarize others, so we'll kind of go back and forth on that. But before we start with verse 15, can anyone just tell us where we are and what's going on? Particularly someone wearing glasses who's sitting a few feet from me. What happened right before this? Who are we talking about? Or anyone? Go ahead. Mm-hmm. 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 Yes. Yeah. There's a whole backstory. Thank you. And we also heard how Vaivasvata Manu, is that right, Jaishnav? Prayed for, he prayed for sons and he got 10 of them. And one of them, who we just heard about, Prashadra, was cursed by Vashishta, the very powerful sage, to become a Shudra because Prashadra accidentally killed a cow. That's a whole other story. But he accidentally killed a cow, so Vashishta cursed him to become a Shudra. And Prashadra accepted this curse, and he renounced worldly life, and then he went into the forest, and he went into deep meditation, and he attained perfection. So now, starting at verse 15, we will hear about other sons of Manu and then their descendants. So we could read 15 and 16, and then I'll summarize 17. So just 15 and 16, and then we'll come back to me.
Being reluctant to accept material enjoyment, Manu's youngest son, whose name was Kavi, gave up the kingdom before attaining full youth. Accompanied by his friends, he went to the forest, always thinking of the self-effulgent Supreme Personality of Godhead within the core of his heart. Does he attain perfection?
From Karusha, another son of Manu, came the Karusha dynasty, of a family of Kshatriyas. The Karusha Kshatriyas were the kings of northern direction. They were celebrated protectors of Brahminical culture and were all firmly religious.
Okay, I'm going to summarize verses 17 through 22. All right, so another son of Manu was Drishta. From Drishta came the Darshta Kshatriyas, who later became Brahmins. And from Nriga came descendants including Sumati, Bhuttajoti, Vasu, Pratika, and Ogavan, whose daughter Ogavati married Sudarshan. From Narishtanta came Agnivesh, who was Agni himself, and from him arose the Agniveshayana Brahmin dynasty. Okay, now we'll come to the descendants of Dishta, which will include today's focus verse. So could you, the Klein verse of 23, 24, just read the translation and we'll go from there. No, it's okay. Just go back to the English. The next person can read this verse. Translation?
Dashta had a son by name Nabhaga. This Nabhaga, who was different from the Nabhaga described later, became a Vaishya by occupational duty The son of Nabhaga was known as Balandana. The son of Balandana was Vatsapriti, and his son was Pramshu. Pramshu's son was Pramiti. Pramiti's son was Khanitra. Khanitra's son was Chakshusha, and his son was Vivimsati.
I'm going to summarize 25, and the next verses we'll read aloud are 26 through 28. So text 25 explains how from Vimvashati came Ramba, then King Kaninetra, and then Karandama. I'll go ahead and read 26 through 28, please.
From Karanda From Karandama came a son of Avikshit, and from Avikshit a son named Maruta, who was the emperor.
Emperor. The great mystic Samvarta, the son of Angira, engaged Maruta in performing a sacrifice yajna. Text 28. In that sacrifice, King Indra became intoxicated by drinking a large quantity of somaras. The Brahmins received ample contributions, and therefore they were satisfied. For that sacrifice, the various demigods who control the winds offered foodstuffs, and the Vishvadevas were members of the assembly. I'm going to summarize 29 through 30, in which it is stated, after Maruta came Dama, Rajavardhana, Sudriti, and Nara. From Nara descended Kevala, Gunduman, Vegavan, Buddha, and finally King Trinabindu. Are the batteries on yet? We're going to see. Okay, and then Trinabindu married the Apsara Alambusha. Their daughter Ilavila gave birth to Kuvera through the sage Vishvara. And then Trinabindu also had 3 sons, Vishala, Sunyabandhu, and Dumraketu, of whom Vishala founded the city of Vaishali. And you can go ahead and read 34 through 36, and that will conclude this chapter.
The son of Vishala was known as Hemachandra. His son was Dhumraksha, and his son was Samyama, whose sons were Devaja and Krisheshwa. The son of Krisheshwa was Somadatta, who performed Ashwamedha sacrifice and thus satisfied the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vishnu. By worshipping the Supreme Lord, he achieved the most exalted post, a residence on the planet to which great mystic yogis are elevated. The son of Somadatta was Sumati, whose son was Janamejaya. All these kings appearing in the dynasty of Vishala properly maintained the celebrated position of King Trinabindu.
Thank you very much. Okay, now we'll go to our focus verse today, which is the combined verse of 23-24. Nabago dishtaputro nya karmana vaishyatam gata balandana sutastasya vatsapritir balandanat vatsaprite suta pramshus Tatsutam pramatim vidu Kanitra pramatestasmat Chakshushota vivimsati. Anyone like to chant? Nabago Dishtraputronya. Karmana Vaishyatam Gata. Balandana Sutastasya. Vatsapritir Balandanat. Vatsaprite Shuta Pramshus. Tatsutam Pramatim Vidu. Kanitra Pramatestasmat. Chakshushota Vivimshati. Navagodishtaputronya. Karmana Vaishyatam Gata. Balandana Sutastasya. Vatsapritir Palandanat. Vatsaprite Sutta Pramshus. Tatsutam Pramatim Vidu. Kanitra Pramatestasmat. Jakshutota Vivimshati. Okay, let's move on to the synonyms. The combined verse, so there are quite a few of them. Let's say them together. Nabaga, by the name of Nabaga. Dishta Putra, the son of Dishta. Anya, another. Karmana, by occupation. Vaishyatam, the order of the Vaishyas. Gata, achieved. Balandana, by the name Balandana. Sutta, son. Tasya, of him, Nabag. Vatsapriti, by the name Vatsapriti. Balandanat, from Balandana. Vatsaprite, from Vatatspriti. Sutta, the son. Pramshu, was named Pramshu. Tatsutam, the son of him, Pramshu. Pramatim, was named Pramati. Vidhu, you should understand. Kanantra, was named Kananitra. Pramate, from Pramati. Tasmat, from him, Kanitra. Chakshusha, was named Chakshush. Atha, thus, from Chakshus. Vivimshati, the son named Vivimshati. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Dishta had a son by the name Nabag. This Nabag, who was different from the Nabag described later, became a Vaishya by occupational duty. The son of Nabag was known as Balandana. The son of Balandana was Vatasprati, and his son was Pramshu. Pramshu's son was Pramati. Pramati's son was Kanitra. Kanitra's son was Chakshush, and his son was Vivimshati. Purport. From Manu, one son became a Kshatriya, another a Brahmin, and another a Vaishya. This confirms the statement by Narada Muni, Yasya ya lakshanam proktam pumsam varna biyavyajakam. Bhagavatam 7.11.35. One should always remember that Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, and Vaishyas should never be regarded as members of a caste by birth. A Brahmin may be changed into a Kshatriya, and a Kshatriya into a Brahmin. Similarly, a Brahmin or a Kshatriya may be changed into a Vaishya, and a Vaishya into a Brahmin or Kshatriya. This is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita, Chaturvarnyam maya shrishtam guna vikarma vigabgasha. So one is a Brahmin, Kshatriya, or Vaishya, never by birth, but by quality. There is a great need of Brahmins. Therefore, in the Krishna consciousness movement, we are trying to train some Brahmins to guide human society. Because at present, there is a scarcity of Brahmins. The brain of human society is lost. Because practically everyone is a Shudra, no one at the present moment can guide the members of society to the proper path by which to achieve perfection in life. In the verse that Prabhupada first quotes in his purport, Bhagavatam, Canto 7, Chapter 11.35, it's a very famous verse. And in that, Narada Muni says to Maharaj Yudhisthira, Yasyaya lakshanam proktam pumsam varna bhivyanjakam yadanyatrapi drishyeta tattaneva vinirjishet. If one shows the symptoms of being a Brahmin, Kshatriya, Vaishya, or Shudra, as described above, even if he has appeared in a different class, he should be accepted according to those symptoms of classification. This is a direct rejection of caste by birth ideology. And Srila Prabhupada's purport to that verse also makes it clear that although judging by birth is going now in the modern era, in Kali Yuga, it is not accepted by Shastra. It has never been accepted by Shastra. In Bhagavad Gita 4.13, which Prabhupada quotes in that purport as well as today's, Krishna himself says, Chatur Varnyam Maya Shrishtam Guna Karma Vibhagashaha. The 4 divisions of society are created by me according to qualities and work. Not birth, not family name, not past life karma, but qualities and activities. Krishna says guna karma, qualities, not janma karma, birth. We can give an example closer to our lives. If your mother is a doctor, does that make you a doctor? Pretty obvious answer, no. To become a doctor, we know it requires years of intense study, exams, and most of all, the temperament and discipline to compassionately care for patients under pressure. That takes a certain kind of personality to want to do that every day for the rest of your life. In the same way, one doesn't inherit the status of a Brahmin. It must be cultivated, it must be demonstrated by character and cultivated through training. And the scriptures themselves give many examples. The sage Vishvamitra, he was born a Kshatriya. But by qualities, he became a Brahmin. Parshuram was born what? A Brahmin. But his qualities and actions marked him as what? A Kshatriya, exactly. So this truth that Varna is by qualities, not birth, it's not a small detail. And this is not some minor point in our tradition. This was the battle cry of our acharyas. Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur openly defied the caste system. He was attacked and even threatened with death for initiating disciples who were not born as Brahmins, for giving sannyas to those who were not born as Brahmins, and even for giving initiation to those who were born as Brahmins, because people were upset that how dare you think that a Brahmin needs initiation. They were born a Brahmin. They already had their thread ceremony at age 9. And so he was attacked for asserting what our scriptures plainly declare, that Brahmins are made by character, not bloodline. And Srila Prabhupada, his disciple, was just as fearless and just as clear. Srila Prabhupada was once asked if he could perform any miracles, because at that time there were some famous so-called yogis who could demonstrate, shooting ashes out of their palms or producing gold coins or whatever. And so he was asked, well, can you perform a miracle? And he pointed to his disciples and he said, this is my miracle. I have made Malechas and Yavanas into Vaishnavas. And that wasn't just a sentiment. It was a visible transformation that he was pointing out. that from uncontrolled meat-eating, materially absorbed Westerners, who just a couple months or years before had never heard of Krishna or ever chanted a shloka, he transformed them into Brahminical devotees with peaceful minds, regulated senses, and lives centered around the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Prabhupada himself often said, Janmana Jayate Shudra. In Kali Yuga, everyone is born a Shudra. Even not in Kali Yuga, everyone is born a Shudra. He would say that often. Everyone's born a Shudra. Even if one's father is a Brahmin, the child, as we discussed, doesn't automatically inherit that qualification. But through some scars, like initiation, one may become Dvija, twice born. And only when one develops the qualities of a Brahmin can one truly be recognized as such. So what are those qualities? Anybody know? That's from Vikita. Peacefulness, self-control, austerity, cleanliness, knowledge, religiosity, jnana, wisdom. Very good. I've listed almost all of them. Yes, thank you to Sridhumna Prabhu. In Mahabharata, in Bhagavad Gita, and other sacred texts, there are specific 12 qualities of a Brahmin that are detailed. And they are a Brahmin must be religious, truthful, self-controlled, austere, detached, humble, tolerant, free from envy, expert in Vedic sacrifices, charitable, steady, well-versed in the scripture, and above all, fixed in devotional service. These qualities cannot be inherited. They must be cultivated. And when they are present, they are very, very pleasing to Krishna. And this principle, it lives in our movement. I have shared this story many times because it left such an impression on me, but so I'm going to share it again. At His Holiness Giriraj Swami Maharaj's 2023 Vyasa Puja, His Holiness Hridayananda Das Goswami Maharaj shared a remembrance. He reminisced about when the two of them were brahmacharis very early in the movement, 1968, 1969, in Boston, at the Boston Temple. And Hridayananda Das Goswami Maharaj shared that Giriraj Swami, who was back then just brahmachari, but Giriraj Swami was very gentle, kind, humble, and everyone loved him from the start. Gentle, kind, humble. Everybody just adored him. And Maharaj said that Giriraj Swami was by far the best book distributor at the Boston Temple, which at that time was one of the largest temples in the U.S. They didn't actually have books back then. It was just Back to Godhead magazine. But Hridayananda Swami said he used to watch Giriraj Swami go out on Sankirtan in the Boston Commons. And he said nearly everyone he stopped ended up buying Back to Godhead from him. And he said, just for a little contrast and variety, nearly no one bought anything from me. People were very attracted to him because of his qualities. Even back then. Then in the early 1970s, Maharaj shared, when Prabhupada announced his plans to establish ISKCON in India in a very big way, Srila Prabhupada selected a few disciples to accompany him, and one of those selected was His Holiness Giriraj Swami Maharaj. And Hridayananda Goswami Maharaj shared that Giriraj Swami was extremely useful to Srila Prabhupada in India. Because Giriraj Swami had the gentle manners, the humility, that were exactly the qualities needed in India to convince the important people of India at that time that our movement was producing real sadhus. Because Giriraj Swami was a real sadhu. Although he was born in the West, he had the unmistakable character of a Brahmin. So it was very easy for cultured and pious people to trust him and listen to him. And he became famous in ISKCON because in terms of making life members, Giriraj Swami Maharaj was the best preacher. And this proves the verse in action. It's character, not birth, that distinguishes a Brahmin or any of the Varnas. But we should know, Krishna makes it also clear that even becoming a perfect Brahmin is not the ultimate goal. Right? In 7:19 of Bhagavad Gita, he says, Bahunam janmanamante gyanavan mam prapadyante. After many, many births and deaths, one who is actually in knowledge surrenders unto me. That surrender is the real goal. Because even if one is a perfect Brahmin, if one doesn't surrender to Krishna, they are still lacking. Prahlad Maharaj also makes that clear in Canto 7, Chapter 9, verse 10, where he says, if a Brahmin has all 12 medical qualifications but is not a devotee, he is lower than a devotee who is a dog eater, who has dedicated everything, minds, words, activities, wealth, and life to the Supreme Lord. And in Canto 3, Chapter 33, Text 6, Prabhupada has a purport that echoes that truth, where he says, taking birth in the family of a Brahmin is certainly due to pious activities in one's past life, but still a child born in such a family depends on reformatory processes like initiation and the sacred thread. But one who chants the holy name of the Lord, even if born in a family of Chandalas, requires no such reformation. Simply by chanting Hare Krishna, they become purified and as qualified as the most learned Brahmin. This is why Lord Chaitanya chose Srila Haridas Thakur, who was born in a Muslim family, to be our Nam Acharya, the teacher of the holy name. Think about it. The person he personally selected to be the Nam Acharya was born in an untouchable outcast family. Lord Chaitanya could have given that position to so many of the learned caste Brahmins that he knew, that respected him, but he chose Haridas Thakur. And our Acharyas explain it was because he wanted to show the world the power of the chanting of the holy name, and that one should be classified according to their qualities, not simply one's birth. Srila Haridas Thakur was condemned by Hindus and Muslims alike. The Hindus did not want to claim him, and the Muslims did not want to claim him. A proud Brahmin even confronted Haridas Thakur, a caste Brahmin, and accused him of polluting the holy name by chanting it loudly. He said, these sacred mantras should be chanted silently in one's heart. You are desecrating our religion. But Haridas Thakur, he responded with Shastric evidence, explaining that loud chanting not only delivers the chanter, but everyone who hears it. He quoted the Bhagavatam, the Puranas, the Upanishads. And the Brahmin, overcome by ego, snapped, just see, in Kali Yuga, outcasts will be teaching religion to the Brahmins. And we know the Muslim authorities condemned him legally. When Haridas Thakur refused to stop chanting, he was sentenced to death. But he never gave up the holy name. And the scriptures confirm the power of this chanting. In the 6th canto, it is stated, one who chants the holy name, even jokingly, indirectly, or neglectfully, is freed from the reactions of unlimited sins. In the 3rd canto, it is stated, even a dog eater becomes eligible to perform Vedic sacrifices if they chant the holy name of the Lord. So Lord Chaitanya's choice of Srila Haridas Thakur as the Acharya for Nam Sankirtan was not symbolic. It was a bold declaration echoing what the scriptures say, that birth is irrelevant, the holy name is everything. And we see this theme throughout the Chaitanya Charitamrita. In fact, the most elevated dialogue that takes place in Chaitanya Charitamrita is between who? Exactly. Yes, between Ramananda Roy and Mahaprabhu. And Ramananda Roy was considered to have been born in what class? Shudra. The highest dialogue, I'm going to repeat it, in the Chaitanya Charitamrita takes place between the Supreme Personality Godhead himself and a so-called Shudra. When Mahaprabhu sought instruction from Ramananda Roy hesitated. He said, "Oh, no, I'm not fit to speak to you. I am low-born." And Mahaprabhu said, "No, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya told me to hear from you." And then the Lord sits quietly and listens as Ramananda Roy speaks the highest truths of Rasa Tattva. It's like very reminiscent of almost Krishna and Arjuna, where Arjuna is asking all these questions about life and the universe. The Lord is doing that to Ramananda Roy. Again, it's qualities that distinguish a Brahmin and what distinguishes a devotee. As Prabhupada said, in Kali Yuga, everyone's born a Shudra. And these ancient systems of elevation that are detailed elsewhere in the scriptures, samskar, yajna, study, they're almost inaccessible. Samskars are broken. Rituals are lost. Society is disordered. But the holy name still shines with its full power. Harinam, Harinam, Harinam eva kevalam, kalau nastyeva, nastyeva, nastyeva gatir anyatha. There is no other way. And that's why the path of bhakti, centered around the holy name, is the true purifier. The holy name does what birth, ritual, and knowledge can never do. As Haridas Thakur says in the Antilila chapter 3, even the faintest utterance of the holy name without offense eradicates sinful reactions like sunrise dispels night. And as we see in the story of Ajamil in the 6th canto, even chanting the name Narayan accidentally at the time of death was enough to purify him and eventually get him to Vaikuntha. So how much more powerful is the holy name when chanted with faith and devotion, received through the mercy of a pure devotee like Srila Prabhupada? This is the miracle of our movement. The holy name, which does not depend on one's birth, education, or past deeds, which is purely transcendental and accessible to everyone, transforms. It turns materialists into sadhus, confused youths into Brahminical leaders of an international society. It turns conditioned souls into joyful servants of the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself. And that is why Srila Prabhupada said, when pointing to his disciples, "This is my miracle." Because the holy name does what no birth, ritual, or scholarship can do. It awakens the soul's eternal identity as Krishna's servant, and it delivers the highest perfection of life. Hare Krishna. Those are my thoughts. So we'll open it up now to hear your thoughts, questions, comments, corrections, reflections. Krishdumna Prabhu? You look like you were thinking. Do you have anything that you want to say out loud?
Yeah, I appreciate how well formatted your class was, and how you went from kind of seemingly like we talk about how Varnashram is not the highest dharma, so we went from almost kind of an external view. Then we got ultimately to the topic of the holy name. So that's, yeah, I like how you said, the holy name is everything. And it's more important than these external societal factors. So we should, make sure to keep the first thing. Don't get so caught up in these other societal norms. stay to the chanting.
Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
It's a very well prepared class. I was appreciating how you were explaining the qualities of the Brahmana, and clearly with Giraj Maharaj's example, saying how pleasing that is and how we should cultivate that.
Mhm.
And sometimes because it's hard to have the qualities of a Brahmana, like that's not my nature.
Mm.
But then to know that it is very pleasing to Guru and Prabhupada, even if it's not our nature, how we should attempt to cultivate it. And you brought that out so nicely. And then we become very effective instruments, like Viraj Maharaj became in the hands of Prabhupada. So that was a very beautiful point. And I was just curious if you, as you were going through the genealogy and all the names, they end with Janmajay becoming, devotee of Vishnu. But before that, the names were not even like, like we say we should have names of Narayan, Vishnu.
Mm.
They were like very, different that you normally don't hear. Any thoughts about very random names?
Well, I am not a Sanskrit scholar. I'm sure those names are significant in their way for the personalities that they're describing. I don't know if Gokulananda Prabhu has any thoughts on that. But when you're talking, I'm like, well, what does Vishvamitra mean? What does Vashishta mean? Not that we name our kids Vashishta or Vishvamitra, but like Drishta and like Ogavati or Ogavan had Ogavati. I mean, we can all research some of these names and find out the root words they're describing. Yeah, I don't know. It's funny because my husband has, not funny, but my husband has shared, like in his family tree, of course he is from a caste Brahmin family, but his family tree, all the names repeat. He's like, you'll see the same 4 names over and over again. It's like Keshav and what is it, Srinivas. And then it's like, yeah, so I know what you're saying. That, and also when we take initiation, we are given names that are directly connected to Radha or Krishna. So I don't know. What are your thoughts, Lita Sundari?
So I don't have a scriptural evidence, but this is what I heard from my ancestors, like my grandparents used to tell, is like usually in olden days they used to look at the horoscopes and they used to know the nature of the child. So based on the nature of the child, they used to give a name. So like you mentioned, I'm sure those are Sanskrit words which has some meaning to it. That's what I have heard. So I don't have any scriptural evidence.
Thank you. Ogavat. Oh. Yeah, I'll have to look at that. Yeah. Gokulananda Prabhu, you have anything? Nothing today. Vaishnav, anything? Right now, everybody's just like grateful for the names that they have. Oh, 1 point. Thank you, Prabhu. Love to hear from you.
Classic. In Brahmavirta Purana, this particular verse, which is quoted, I think, in Chaitanya Bhagavad or Chaitanya Charitamrita. So those who are puffed up, like myself, taking pride, thinking that I've taken birth in a Brahmin family, this is for them. So this verse goes, Rakshasim Kalimashritya Jayante Brahma. So those Brahmins, most of the Brahmins in Kali Yuga, this is what the verse says, not all of them, so don't feel offended. So most of the Brahmins of this Kali Yuga are Rakshasim Kalimashritya, were the demons in the Dwapar Yuga, which were spared by Lord Krishna. So, not all of them, but it is said Krishna spared, few of the demons who were like, they had the element of goodness. So they were given an opportunity to elevate themselves. So they take birth in the Brahmin family, Brahma Yoni. That this verse is so useful,
Mm.
to humble ourselves and not take unnecessary fun.
Mm. Thank you. So how do we develop these rabbinical qualities? Any ideas? On the footstep? That's exactly right. Yes, by chanting the holy name. I have heard, I know I've heard His Holiness Giriraj Swami say it. I'm pretty sure I've heard His Holiness Radha Swami say it. But it's also there in the scriptures if you read it. The chanting of the holy name, it purifies the heart. It doesn't just, I mean, obviously it gets rid of our misconceptions of who we are. But in order to do that, when we're cleaning the heart, it gets rid of those anartas. And those anartas are what prevent us from, being tolerant, from being non-envious, for being self-controlled. By chanting the holy name without offense, we will eradicate that. And then, of course, there is some mental effort as well. Like Tulsi Saki, you mentioned, how many times have you heard people say, well, that's not my nature, this isn't my nature, that isn't my nature. We also have to try. His Holiness Giriraj Swami Maharaj also shared that one time. He was somewhere, I think he was with Gargamuni in India. And there was some exchange with like a shopkeeper or something, and the order was wrong, or there was dishonesty or something. And Giriraj Swami made a remark. And then afterwards, Gargamuni said to him, you didn't have to say it like that. It's hard for me to imagine Giriraj Swami saying anything harsh. But Gargamuni pointed out to me, you shouldn't have said it like that. And then he quoted a shloka that stated that, a devotee should not cause mental distress to any living entity. And Giriraj Swami said he really took that to heart. So we have to do our part. And I actually did listen to a class recently by His Holiness Radha Swami Maharaj, where he stated specifically that developing tolerance is very important, and that quality is very pleasing to Krishna. Gokulananda Prabhu.
Yeah, I appreciate the point that you mentioned in a class that we need to cultivate. But there is the other aspect to it also, which is stated in Srimad Bhagavatam. It says, Yasyasti bhaktir bhagavati akinchana sarve gune tatra samasate sudha haro abhaktasya kutu mahatmana manoratinate dhavatam. So, $5 bill is already included in $500 bill. So, there is a byproduct. Nobody focuses on byproduct. Everybody focuses on the primary product. So our primary product is bhakti, pure devotional service. And when we're trying to practice pure devotional service, trying to inculcate all the facets of the devotional service, 64 principles, right, items of devotional service. When you're doing that, you don't have to focus on cultivating the Brahminical qualities separately. They are byproduct, automatically generated.
Yeah, I agree with that. I didn't mean we should do anything.
I'm not saying do not try to cultivate.
No, I know what you're
like
saying.
One extreme, to say
Right.
that.
Right. Like Krishna Jumna Prabhu had also said, keep the main thing, and everything else will follow. I just know when I heard Radha Swami say, you really got to be more tolerant, I was like, oh, he's talking to me. Oh, I got to count to 10 before I speak. But yes, absolutely. Keep the main thing. We want to be servants of Krishna. Our focus will be on that, not about, developing things in ourselves. But absolutely. He'll help us become better devotees when we're focusing on him.
One more food for thought. Like we see, no offense, but we see in the past and throughout the scriptures, there are so many great personalities who are like elevated brahmanas. Example, Durvasa Muni. So if you look at, someone may say, oh, he is not reflecting a typical Brahminical quality, which is to forgive. So that's why I always appreciate this particular point that I heard from my seniors, that our scriptures are not textual, they're always contextual, and they are never black or white. So we can never say, okay, only this person who exhibits these qualities is the Brahmin. So there are various shades of modes, right? So we cannot judge any person, looking at him or her externally saying he or she is a Brahmin or he or she is not a Brahmin. So it's a percentage, it's a degree. It's like blooming lotus from the bud status to the fully blossomed flower. So these qualities, they blossom slowly and steadily as we practice the devotion. It's a continuous process. And if you look at what is stated in Bhagavad Gita, mode of goodness is also bad in the sense that it is temporary. There is because 14th chapter says there's constant conflict among these three modes. So even if you are situated, someone may show these qualities, Brahminical qualities, by virtue of having taken birth in a Brahmin family. It is not necessary that it's going to last for a long time. It is not necessary that that person is going to continue on the same Brahminical platform in the next lifetime. That is the danger. And that is why the goal is not to be situated in goodness, to be a Brahmin. The goal is to transcend the goodness, to transcend being Brahminical, which is to be a Vaishnava.
Yes. Thank you for circling back to that emphasis of that point, which definitely I hope people heard from the class. I know Jivna Prabhu did that. Yeah, it's nice to have, it's great to develop these qualities, but that's not where you stay. That's not the goal. They will come along on your path. The goal is to become a Vaishnava, it's to become a devotee. Dare I even say pure devotee? But of course, you need Krishna's mercy for that. So, everybody chant attentively, do your seva, pray for mercy, pray for me. Are you doing your prayers? Any other thoughts? Well, thank you so much. Srimad Bhagavatam ki